Good evening, everybody. Welcome to the 2026 town meeting for the town of Williston. If everybody could please rise, and we will ask the scouts to present the colors. Gentlemen, will you lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance? To the flag of the United States of America, and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Post the colors. Thank you. Thank you very much. So we'll be introducing the select board members in a moment, but just because I'm up here already, my name is Ted Kenny. I'm the chair of the select board. Next on our, you can see the schedule is up already, and moving right along from that, that'll get up, we'll talk about that in a moment. I would like to point out that one of the in memoriam references in the town report is to William Bill Palagia. I may be saying that wrong, and I apologize if I am. He was on the Community Justice Board from 2016 to 2019, and he passed away this last December. Next, we have two people that the annual report has been dedicated to, Gary Holly and Richard Dick Ransom. And I will alert people that I forgot my glasses. So, no.
I almost brought my other big readers.
It's half about fashion, so I don't want to borrow anybody else's. So, reading. Gary Holly served on the Conservation Commission for 28 years, from 1997 to 2025. Bringing a background in forest management to his service was an asset to Williston. Gary's impact can be seen in the open space guidelines for the town, his work to assist with the preservation of hundreds of acres in the community, including the Catamount Community Forest and the Glazer parcel specific plan process. He acted as a connection between forestry programs at UVM and Williston, including installation of a test plot of 50 American chestnut cultivars to monitor the disease-resistant characteristics, and forest management at Catamount. He was a strong voice defending Williston's natural resources for all residents to benefit from, frequently raising key probing questions during development reviews that led to changes to proposed development that reduced impact. The Williston Conservation Commission is honoring Gary with a new bench at the scenic 5-Tree Hill overlook. Richard Dick Ransom. Dick Ransom is a longtime Williston resident who served in several capacities of service to our town. Dick served as a member of the Recreation Committee from 1981 to 1987, a lister from 1995 to 2003, and the town's assistant assessor from 2003 until his retirement in June 2024. In his service to Williston, Dick consistently showcased his caring for his fellow residents, sitting with dozens of residents over the years to explain various elements of their property assessment. Dick's institutional knowledge of the town's development over his time here, plus his affinity for numbers, made him a perfect match for this important town role. So if we could have a round of applause for Next, I'd also like to point out and offer our sincere thanks in recognizing Police Chief Foley. Chief, I saw you come in. Can you stand? All right. Chief Foley is not retired yet, but he has given us his notice that he will be retiring in the next couple of months. Chief Foley has 50 years of service in public safety, 40 years as a police chief, and he was our Williston police chief from 2017 until now, 2026. So it is with a profound sense of appreciation and gratitude that we acknowledge you. Thank you, Chief. So. Next, it's my honor to introduce the other members of the Select Board. If you need to stand or raise your hands, or I don't know. Vice Chair Greta D'Agostino. Jean Jensen. Ellie Beckett. Ellie. And not here, but also would be his last meeting, but is Mike Isham. Next, I would call for a motion to elect a town moderator for this meeting. Are there any motions? Chris Roy is there a second?
Thank you, Chair.
First and second. Are there any other motions? Hearing none, is there any discussion on the motion? Hearing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All those opposed say nay. The ayes have it unanimously. So I will now turn the meeting over to our elected moderator, Christopher Roy.
Good evening, everybody, and thank you for the privilege of serving as town moderator for the second year. Hopefully, I looked in the mirror and thought through my performance last year, and hopefully you'll see a significant improvement. So the next article that is warned for the evening's town meeting is, shall the voters authorize that current taxes be paid to the town treasurer in 3 equal installments with due dates of August 18, November 16, and February 16, as authorized by 32 VSA Section 4871. Is there a motion to approve the article? Thank you. If you can give your name. Yep, got it, Sarah?
Yep, Stu Myers.
And a second? There you go. Who wants to be part of history here? Is there any discussion about Article 2? Hearing none, all in favor of the article, please say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? The ayes have it. The next item, Article 3, is shall the voters of the town of Williston accept the reports of the town officials as presented in the town report. Before we ask for a motion and ask for you to pass judgment on this particular article, our town manager, Eric Wells, is going to come up and give us a short presentation about some of the town reports.
Well, thank you, Mr. Moderator, and good evening, everyone. Great to see you again here for our annual Williston Town Meeting. I'm your town manager, Eric Wells. I'm in my 6th year of service as your town manager and my 9th year serving the community overall. So I'll go through some items in the town report. There's hard copies near the door, and if you don't have a hard copy, also available online. Get some highlights and kind of look back at the year. I kind of look at from town meeting to town meeting. Technically, it's an FY25 annual report, but we'll go through a few different things here. So, year in review. I like pictures. I think pictures tell a good story from the community year to year. So we'll start with some pictures. As I was putting together, I thought of some photos that we could all say, hey, that's Williston. So this first one is a recent photo from our rec department with a skating and bonfire event at Village Community Park. Next one I borrowed from the Observer, came a little blurry, but it's our 4th of July parade, the Sue Pasco Memorial Williston Lawn Chair March and Drill Team in the parade from last summer. We had a great Fill the Ambulance food drive our police and fire departments put on last fall. The community filled the ambulance twice to benefit the Williston Community Food Shelf, so great work by everyone. Our Williston PD does a lot. One thing was rescuing this owl last year as well. So this was great work by our department and something you don't see every day. So this is a picture of the owl. This next one was a public hearing on our new town plan from the Planning Commission. And I really feel this photo is what local government policymaking is all about. Hard work, working on local issues, gathered in a room on a what time of year it was? I think it was the fall of last year. So look at that. This next photo from our fire department. This is an acquired structure training that was held over on Redmond Road last October. This is a view of one of our firefighters overhauling, which is searching for hidden fire in the fire room after they extinguished the fire. We had over 125 firefighters participate in this training from all over the country and brought in trainers to assist. So, a photo from that training. And also last November, our local scouts worked with the town and Sustainable Williston to install a new fence for the pollinator garden at the Village Community Park. I'm sure a lot of you are familiar with Industrial Avenue from last summer. This is some work on replacement of that pedestrian bridge and the sewer main underneath it. We've got that all complete now and back open for everybody. And close with a couple from our rec zone, our 2,000-foot square foot space we lease over off Harvest Lane. This was a community bingo night from just last week at the rec zone. And then this is a picture from our free senior meals that we started offering last year in partnership with AgeWell on Tuesdays. We generally have over 30 people attend that event. Thanks to Taylor and our rec department for organizing that with AgeWell. If you're interested in attending, just reach out to Taylor and the rec department. So a couple projects to highlight here. First is our town hall parking lot project that was completed last summer. So we've got a series here. I took pictures from the same spot each day to kind of see how it went. So this was the parking lot before. The project was to improve drainage, add lighting, and a big upgrade for the safety of residents and staff. Project price tag came in at around $350,000. We used a $200,000 grant from the state and $150,000 from the ARPA funds to cover the cost of that project. We decreased the scope a little bit of that along the way to save money, and we removed a couple lighting structures to save some money as well along the way. So that's the big dig part of it for the drainage. And that's the finished parking lot just before we put in the lights. So if anyone's voting tomorrow evening, you'll notice a difference with the lights over there. It's been a great addition. We've started to electrify our town fleet. On the left is our stormwater electric vehicle. And then just last week, we received our new police electric vehicle that our detective unit is using. We have charging stations installed, 2 as part of the parking lot project for public access, and along for our fleet charging over at our town hall. Then we also, the town completed a new park pavilion project in Village Community Park last summer. We have picnic tables provided through a donation program, and this is available for reservation for parties and community use. So I'll go through a few department highlights here to round out the report. First, Williston Police Department, another busy year for Williston PD with over 8,400 calls. That was about an increase of 400 calls from the prior year. The department had its 19th sworn officer position approved in our current budget. As I mentioned, the Detective Bureau was reestablished this year. From its launch last May to January of this year, our detectives have been involved in over 290 cases. Their work's led to over 30 arrests and 10 search warrants in that time. They've also provided public outreach and assistance, including a focus on fraud awareness to the community. Police department also responded to over 530 motor vehicle crashes last year. We have a couple photos of some swearing in from officers who joined our department over the last year as well. Williston Fire Department as well had a busy year, responded to over 2,680 calls last year. 2/3 of those are medical, so just over 1,800 medical calls. That was an 8% rather increase year to year. 750 incidents overlapped in that time, so about 28% of the time they had more than one call to respond to at once. The department logged over 3,000 hours of training, completed a community-based strategic plan for the department, and was also recognized with the American Heart Association Mission Lifeline Gold Award. This award reflects the exceptional, timely, and evidence-based care provided by Williston firefighters to patients experiencing severe heart attacks and strokes. And then also want to share from the news, you might recall we had the wildfire on Brownell Mountain last fall during the drought, and this is a helicopter from the National Forest Service that helped with fire suppression that day. So not often, I don't know if it'll happen again, that we'll have that equipment in town here, but it's a picture from the last year, definitely. A couple items from our Public Works Department, repaving of 8 public street sections, some stormwater pipelining on Harvest and Maple Roads, culvert replacements and ditch cleaning throughout town, gravel road drainage improvements, and then the picture here is from the Butternut Road drainage improvements using a FEMA hazard mitigation grant of that work that was completed last summer, a lot of it by our department. Recreation and Parks, another photo from our rec zone space, a bone builders class there with a number of participants. Recreation and Parks averaged 92 campers per week at rec camps last summer. As I said, the rec zone indoor space has been busy. There's a kitchenette installed, and that's helped with the weekly meals with partnership with Agewell. Department offered 269 activities, had over 3,200 program participants, and a parks master plan is in development right now. Our Planning and Zoning Department, as I mentioned, our new town plan was adopted last fall. We had 21 new dwelling units completed in the last year. This department provides support to our Planning Commission, Development Review Board, Conservation Commission, Historical Design Advisory Committee, Energy Committee, and Housing Committee. 230 permits were approved last year, and this photo is from a very full accessory dwelling unit workshop organized by the Housing Committee held last fall. Finally, our town administration, we added an HR director position and welcomed Susan Leonard to that role. Over $50 million in property taxes were collected between the town and education by our treasurer's department. Over 6,800 pages were recorded in our town clerk's office, and our grand list rose by just about 0.5% to over $2.1 billion. Our Dorothy Allen Memorial Library, we welcomed new director Kevin Unrath. Work was completed on the expansion and renovation project we'll talk about this evening. A new strategic plan was completed. The library has over nearly 4,900 patrons, about a 6% increase in the last year, circulated over 134,000 items, held 798 programs with over 11,500 attendees. Then to follow up a little bit on our Community Justice Center, spent some busy work with transition planning to a regional service approach coming up on July 1st. There's a steering committee, transition team, and a town advisory board working on the overall planning for this service. The City of Burlington will embed staff in the Williston Police Department starting July 1st. But overall, with this important service, the structure will retain our local volunteer structure, community-based service delivery, location in our Williston Police Department. We'll have the benefit of a centralized administrative hub with the City of Burlington. The CJC handled 181 cases in fiscal year 2025. And then, as I like to do every year to recognize our town staff, they provide community service every day in many ways to support our Williston. Fortunate to have such a dedicated and hardworking and talented group of town staff. A few milestones to highlight: 5 years of service, Detective Avery Lemna, Police Sergeant Rick Reno, Fire Chief Aaron Collette, Treasurer Mary Grattan, Senior Firefighter Jim Wells, 10 years of service, Senior Planner Melinda Scott, Highway Equipment Operator John Johnson, Senior Firefighter Jeremy Harriman, 15 years of service, AP and Payroll Specialist Lynn Keefe, Water and Sewer Technician Clint Smartin, and 20 years of service, Assistant Highway Supervisor Rick Wixon. And I also want to take a moment to thank and recognize our dozens of town volunteers. They're critical to our local government and spend hundreds of hours meeting and in service to Williston. If you wouldn't mind, join me in a round of applause to thank our staff and our volunteers. So Thank you all. I will turn it back to our moderator to consider this article, and I will be back up at the conclusion of town meeting for the public information hearing coming up on the Australian ballot items. So thank you all.
So Article 3 reads, "Shall the voters of the town of Williston accept the reports of the town officials as presented in the town report?" Is there a motion to approve the article? And is there a second? Thank you. Any discussion? Hearing none, all in favor of approving Article 3, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? The ayes have it. Article 4 is to transact any other business to be brought before said meeting. One thing I would note is that after this town meeting closes, there will be an informational session regarding both the town budget and the library bond issue, and then followed by the school informational session. So any questions directed toward those matters would be best directed to the informational session relating to those. So with that caveat, is there any other business to be brought before tonight's meeting? Yes? Yeah, and if you can just state your name and... Yes, please.
Okay, I got it. I hope this is the appropriate time for me to speak. My name is Mary Oliphant, and I'm a Williston resident. I understand the focus of our town meeting is primarily on two important issues, the town budget and the library town green bond. But town meeting day is also a time for any resident to voice an alarm to their community. Current immigration enforcement is causing damage to our economy, our community, our country. We need to oppose cruel and unlawful acts by ICE and oppose their expansion here in Williston. We should follow the possibility that ICE is entertaining the leasing or purchasing of another warehouse in Williston. Regardless of the purpose of this building, which could include detainee detention, we should do what we can to prohibit it. Some progress in restraining ICE is being made in Vermont. Our progress can encourage other states. Two bills, S-208 and S-209, passed by the Vermont Senate and hopefully soon by the House, would include a number of safe places where no civil arrest could be made and could prohibit most mask wearing by all Vermont law enforcement. So many in our state denounce unlawful actions by ICE, but we need more people power. Many of us have a need to feel significant, to feel our lives matter. This is an opportunity to do that. You may not be threatened by ICE, but many are. You may not be subjected to inhumane, even deadly enforcement, but many are. Your opposition to these acts will make a difference to many. There is much you can do. You could join Williston for Equity and Democracy, where there are many opportunities for action. You could join our peaceful protests to raise awareness. You could contact our representatives and voice your opinions. Your voice matters.
Is there anybody else who would like to bring business before the body? Yes.
My name is Alice Batson. I'm a Williston resident over 30 years. I would like to thank Mary for her heartfelt response to this ICE expansion in Williston. I'd just like to add one more thing. Before the Developmental Review Board It's DP 2507 was brought to their, proposed to the review board last March 11th. And it got pre-approval for a 30,000 square foot warehouse. And when asked what the purpose was, they said, not sure, we're not sure, but that's okay because during the pre-application process, you do not have to give purpose. Okay? You do not have to give purpose. So what I'm saying is we already have the targeting center there, and we know that they're hiring more people and putting out the call. All you have to do is go on a hiring service like Indeed, and they are requesting people to sign up and be analysts here. And we've heard that maybe 100 more analysts are going to be hired. So this is very disturbing. So what we want to know is, what is the purpose of this warehouse? We deserve to know. We want to know who our neighbors are. Thank you.
Anybody else who would like to speak?
Turn this down a little bit here and turn it around because I want to speak to my neighbors. Sorry about that. But my name is Brant Dinkin. And, my name is Brant Dinkin, and I'm a member of Williston Restorative Justice Program and the Williston for Equity and Democracy Organization. And I want to thank Alice and Mary because this is like a critical moment, historic moment for Williston, and a dangerous moment. And we all have to wake up to that danger, including myself. And as the federal government cuts funding from public health and education, as well as American libraries, these cuts trickle down to Williston. So the money we had yesterday to run our town like it should be is no longer available today. These across-the-board cuts includes money we no longer have to make our library what it deserves to be. If we want to go forward with the library proposal, we'll take extra money out of our own pockets from local taxes instead of taxes that we've already paid to the federal government. Our federal tax money that has been spent on things like the annual $5 billion for ICE operations, $85 billion annually. Just think of a fraction of this $85 billion of ICE money made it back to Williston like it should, instead of 4 badly needed services and capital improvements like the proposed library on the ballot tomorrow. The challenge firsthand is on the Williston Select Board members' laps with limited resources and growing pressure. So now's the challenge is being passed along to the people of Williston, to us. And right now, right here, it puts our community into a sort of a division. Divide and conquer is the strategy of the current administration. Let's not let that happen here. Too much is at stake, even beyond the $14.5 million proposed, which is a huge amount unto itself. Williston has become one of the ICE's surveillance headquarters in the nation, as Mary and Alice has pointed out. And surveillance is the driver of ICE. It's the backbone of ICE. The Williston Select Board has taken a stand against ICE by creating a resolution that says Williston strongly objects to having any Vermont facility used for warrantless surveillance of online activities and other monitoring of Vermonters. ICE, as we all know, is a menacing presence that compromises the safety of our community. That is paramount. The readings or the printing on ICE uniforms may be police, but we all know they are far from the police. The police is our Williston Police Department. They have our safety in mind. We, the people of Williston, have the most influence to discourage the presence of ICE surveillance in our town. Williston people taking action against the establishment of ICE surveillance will not only be a service to the town of Vermont, but to Vermont and to the country. More and more people are getting up, standing up, and speaking up. And while the tide is starting to turn, there's still much to be done. If you haven't already, now is the time to be part of that work. One of the ways to becoming a member, as Mary suggested, of the growing Williston for Equity and Democratic organization or another advocate organization. To become a member of this organization, speak with me, or if you have any questions about being active in any organization after this meeting, I'd be glad to help you, try to help you. Thank you for listening.
Ginny?
Thank you all. I'm Senator Ginny Lyons. I'm here today as your representative in the legislature, and what I'm hearing really reaffirms the work that we are doing in the legislature. I want to thank all of you who have spoken so beautifully around our need to recognize the need for due process in our state for all folks who are here, regardless of their background and their point of origin. I do want to call attention first, 208 and 209, those two law bills have been passed out of the Senate. They will offer some protection to all of us, so we know who's approaching us, who will be recognized as public safety, as an ICE person, and will not wear a mask inappropriately. 209 will also allow for some protection in specific areas like our schools, where it's so important that we understand who is present in our schools. Finally, I'd like to share with you, before I share with you, I just want to say thank you to the Select Board for the resolution that you have passed. It's outstanding. And it's talked about across the State House in every part of Vermont. I'd like to share with you Proposition 4, which is a fundamental constitutional amendment allowing for protection of fundamental rights regardless of your gender, gender identity, ethnicity, race, religion, or disability. We all deserve to have those fundamental rights embedded in the Constitution. I've been working on this one for about 10 years, and finally it will be up for a second vote in the legislature and up for a final vote in November by all of you. So thank you all for being so important to this process that we are in the midst. This is the basis for democracy. It always has been. And so thanks for being tolerant of me tonight. Take care.
Would anyone else like to be heard? Seeing none, I want to thank the speakers for their heartfelt statements, their respectful statements, and for all of its flaws, Vermont Town Meeting always brings to mind something that Winston Churchill said, which is democracy is the worst form of government, except for all those other forms that have been tried from time to time. And I think Williston, in its own way, is proving that democracy is still a workable governing model, and hopefully that message will percolate up through elsewhere in our nation. Given that, the matters to be voted on in the town meeting this evening have been concluded. I would entertain a motion to adjourn this town meeting until tomorrow morning at 7 a.m., at which point town meeting will reconvene for Australian ballot in the Williston Armory. Is there somebody who will make that motion? Is it in a second? Any discussion? Hearing none, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Thank you very much.
I might need you tomorrow. Can I just text you if it's going sideways? Yeah. During the day, you're home, like for real? Except for your friend. Yeah, so I might need you. All right, one person's got a dog at that's not, so maybe, but hopefully not.
Okay, good evening again. I'm back to talk Australian ballot items now for a public information hearing, now that the town meeting has concluded for the evening. So what I'll do first is go through the town budget proposal, go through other articles on the ballot, and to close this out, we'll have a presentation on the Library Village Green project with a team of us. Then we'll open things up for questions on anything on the ballot. So I'll jump into the budget first. So the town budget proposal is just over a $17 million budget for fiscal year 2027, with just over $9 million to be raised by taxes. So our town budget is fiscal policy. It includes services to be provided, the cost to provide those services, and the revenue to pay for services to balance the budget. This is the best revenue and spending model we have with the information available. We're making a plan now for the budget year that ends in June of 2027. Some budget objectives worked on this year with the select board: careful planning for growth, prioritizing public safety and quality of life services and long-term financial stability, maintain the level of services that residents rely on, being responsive to rising service costs and community needs in a growing town, limiting new property taxes as the last source of revenue needed to balance the budget, continued expansion of public safety capacity and services in town, and a data-driven service additions for those public safety components. So by the numbers, as I shared, it's an operating budget of just over $17 million proposed for fiscal year 2027, an increase of $1.075 million from FY26. It's about a 6.75% increase year to year. Primary driver of that is personnel-related costs in the budget. Those components include inflation, union contracts, benefit costs. Our healthcare costs is about a 5% increase, and actually that's lower than in prior years. Those costs have come down a bit. And local government delivers services by people for people. We employ over 100 people to provide these services in town. About 2/3 of our budget are personnel-related costs. Other expense drivers in this budget are contracted services like information technology, general overhead expenses like material costs, utility costs, all underlined to provide municipal services to each of you. So looking at that budget increase breakdown, the $1.075 million, about 37% of that is staff wages, 21% is staff benefits, about 19% is fire peak staffing. I'll go into that in the next slide. That has no property tax impact, and 23% from all other operating expenses. Elements included in staff wages include cost of living increase, positions that were budgeted for a full year that were partially budgeted in FY26, terms of labor contracts, retirement contributions, and payroll taxes. So looking at fire department peak staffing, we added 2 firefighter positions in fiscal year 2026, our current year. This peak staffing are work shifts that align with historic patterns of call demand during the week after reviewing data for several years. This is added capacity for overlapping calls, especially medical calls. So shared earlier, the department had 2,681 calls for service in calendar year 2025. and 28% of the time, those calls were overlapping. There's been a 41% increase in calls for the fire department since the year 2021. This model was implemented in February of this year to address the demand for the service being faced. Initial data is illustrating success in its design after being operational for a month. We'll continue to analyze those numbers as we've implemented this service. Ambulance revenue is covering the cost of these two positions. Revenue for our ambulance has increased in recent years due to the call volume, and this is reinvesting it to continue to address demand. And as I shared, taxes are not funding these positions. So looking at the story behind the budget, that baseline budget increase is 5.33% from FY 2026. The fire peak staffing adds about just under 1.5% to the bottom line, using the ambulance revenue to pay for it. Our overall expense increase, when you add those two together, is 6.75% in the budget proposal. Our overall expense by department for the town, our public safety is about 50% of our expenses, public works about 16%. That's 2/3 of the budget to cover those core services we deliver to the town. More than half of our full-time workforce are in those three departments. We staff public safety 24/7 in Williston. It's a level of service not offered by all communities. Providing that service has a significant cost to it. Allows us to have professional staff on duty day and night. So the other side of the budget is the revenue side. How do we balance paying for those expenses to provide those services to you in the community? Our user fees, as I mentioned, ambulance revenue, about a $350,000 increase due to multiple years of revenue exceeding budget projections. We get grant funds every year. One of the most significant ones is local highway aid. Each town gets that by their highway miles, and we receive just under $200,000 from the state of Vermont. We have host down fees for the Chittenden Solid Waste District we collect. Our local options sales tax, sales rooms and meals tax. There's been legislation that was passed last year, and thanks to our delegation for the advocacy for that as well. Right now, that local option tax, it was split 70-30, with the town retaining 70% of the revenue, and that's now changed to 75-25, with the town retaining 75%. That shifted last October, so we're seeing a higher retention of that local option tax revenue that we receive here in town. Our property tax, $9 million for our revenue in the budget. That's about a $570,000 increase in this budget. And the town also uses reserves from our fund balance, and that's about $550,000 in this budget. That was decreased by about $75,000 from the FY 26 budget. This is watched carefully by our select board. It's just used to buy down the tax rate each year, but it needs to be monitored and used thoughtfully year to year in the overall budget picture. So the visual there, you see our property tax revenue is about 54% of our overall revenue. Our local option tax revenue is about 26%, and everything else rounds out the remaining 20% to balance this budget. Look at the property tax component of that. Our estimated tax rate increase is about 2.4 cents per $100 of assessed property value. This is an estimate. The final tax rate is set in early July by the select board after the town's grand list is finalized in June. That budget is balanced by looking to raise an additional $570,000 in new property taxes. This projected tax increase is about $24 per $100,000 of assessed property value. The median assessed home in Williston is $300,000. That increase is estimated to be just over $70 in new taxes for the year for that median home, or if you look at it monthly, about $6 per month. Breakdown on property tax bills, just a reminder, about 83% of that is education tax this year, about 17% is municipal taxes. The town collects the education tax per state statute. Everyone gets one tax bill, and that's paid to our treasurer's office. Our grand list in town is the total value of all property. I shared over earlier, it's just over $2.1 billion. We're estimating a net increase of about 0.5%, or just under $11 million for FY 27. This net increase is affected by new construction and changes in valuation, especially as commercial valuation is going down in recent years for some property appeals. The grand list growth, this will raise about $45,000 in new tax revenue based on the estimated tax rate in FY 27. There's a reappraisal ordered for the town by the state. The town is currently in the process of hiring a contractor to complete that reappraisal in the coming years. It's been since 2016 that Williston has undergone a townwide reappraisal. Our common level of appraisal, or CLA, as you may hear it, is around 58% right now. That indicates our property assessments are about 58% of fair market value. And then just looking at other Chittenden County tax rates, Williston has one of the lowest municipal tax rates for any larger community that has full services in the county. This is due in large part to our local option tax revenue. We're budgeting about $4.35 million in local option tax revenue for fiscal year 2027. As I mentioned, that 5% increase in the share of that to a 75-25 split with the state of Vermont now moving forward. This local option tax revenue offsets our property tax rate by 20 cents per $100 of assessment. For the median homeowner, this saves around $600 annually in property taxes because we have that local option tax and it's applied this way in the budget. So I'll jump into other articles. We'll close with the library presentation, then we'll open it up for questions on anything on the ballot for tomorrow. So I'll go to next to Article 7 on the warning. This is an EMS reserve fund. This would establish a sustained funding system for paramedic training, advanced EMT, and possibly future community medicine service delivery needs. This would establish this reserve fund. Think of it like a savings account that could be used for a specific purpose. There's no funding attached to this article. We just create it, and there'll be discussion of how to fund that moving forward. And with a reserve, it rolls over year to year. So if funding is allocated to that reserve, it stays in that reserve for that purpose until it is used for something for that specific purpose. Other communities have established this funding structure. Our department, for example, has been engaged in paramedic training. We've utilized BTC and UVM. This is a pricey training. It could be upwards to over $20,000 for it, but the return we get is continuing to train members of our department at the level of paramedic, providing that capacity with more of our fire department members able to provide that level of care to the community. Oh, there was my slide. So Article 8, you might recognize this from last year. This is the Environmental Reserve Fund, asking to assess a tax of 1/2 of 1 cent on the grand list, with the proceeds estimated to be about $110,000 to be deposited in the town's Environmental Reserve Fund. Again, this is a reserve fund like I was speaking about for the training article. This is for the purpose of permanent preservation and protection of open space and public lands within the town. So the ERF was established in 1990 to protect habitat, recreation areas, and rural character and views in town. It's used to purchase land directly, to purchase easements to allow public access on primitive trails, and to provide financial assistance for property owners navigating the legal process of permanently conserving their land. The town's conserved over 3,000 acres since the ERF was established. It's about 16% of the acreage in town. Long-term goal is to preserve about 30% by the year 2050. Past projects funded in part or by whole by the ERF include the Catamount Community Forest, Mud Pond Country Park and Conservation Area, and the Sucker Brook Trail. That reserve fund has a balance of about $660,000 after this year's extra 1/2 cent is all collected there. Select Board's decided to ask voters in Article 8 whether the town should raise a separate 1/2 cent on the grand list to fund the ERF again this year. This was approved last year in FY26. It's a type of question that needs to be approved annually by the voters. Oh, not doing good here. That was my slide I was reading. Let's see. So I'll jump to next. Way to Article 17, the charter change that we have for consideration. This charter change would eliminate the office of elected lister in town. The duties held by the listers would be the assessor's responsibility. Our current elected listers support this change. There's increased annual education requirements for listers, along with increasing complex commercial property appeals. Town currently has a contracted assessor, an assistant assessor on staff. This change is in effect what they're currently doing. As I mentioned, there'll be a reappraisal coming up as we're working through that process. There'll likely be some additional capacity needs in the coming years for the department. But if you think about this charter change, it's really not changing much of the day-to-day operation. So we'll jump into the Library and Village Green bond overview now, and I'll invite some others up here with me, our Library Director, Kevin Unrath, and Carla Karstens, the Library Trustee, for this part of the presentation. I will get a drink. And I'm going to turn our architect for the project, John Hemmelgarn's here as well this evening, who can assist with questions if they come up. So let's see. So I'll start with one of the renderings that would look at the new entrance for the addition of the library facing south towards the school. And what we'll cover for you this evening, we'll look at the project needs, some key statistics, how we got here. This project's been under development since 2022. We'll go through the project design and scope. We'll talk about the budget and the bond proposal to consider on Article 6, and then looking at the capital campaign that's been underway. So I will turn over to Kevin to jump into this section.
Thanks. For those of you who I haven't met, I'm Kevin Unrath, the fairly new library director. Thank you for inviting me here. So the project needs, essentially, the need is that we've run out of space in the library. So for every book we add to the collection now, we have to take one out of the collection. So we've outgrown our library. One of the benefits of this project is creating space for folks who don't have it right now. We don't have any room really for young adults who come over in large quantities from the school. And so this project does create a space for our young adults that's separate from the children's space. It also creates more space for seniors to be able to meet, and a space for pre-literacy, or what we call a wiggle room. All of that's in the plan. There are improvements to the village green. So there's a performance platform for concerts and for events. There's pathways, accessible pathways and seating in the village green. There will be more trees planted than will be removed for the project. And there's a safer traffic flow. There'll be, instead of the diagonal parking that's on a gradient, there'll be an actual flat parking lot, and there'll be a left turn lane. So as you leave out tonight, instead of having to decide whether you're turning left or right from one lane, there'll be 2 lanes, which will help during school. The public input, and we'll talk about this a little bit more in the future, but we've spent a little more than 3 years working on this. We've done a survey of around 1,000 residents asking about where they wanted the library to be. And the location, keeping it here, really aligned with the village master plan. John Hemmelgarn is here, and he'll talk a little bit about the project that he designed after the feedback. But I want to introduce Carla Karstens, who has really steered the ship for this project, for the trustees, for the schematic design committee, and for the capital campaign committee that's currently underway, to talk a little bit more about some of the needs.
Hello. Okay, wait. Okay, okay. Okay, so some of the key statistics that we have here is that Williston's population has grown 50% since the last expansion in the 1990s. Library visits have increased 92% since the last expansion. 56,000 children's books have been checked out in 2025. The library is a very exciting and used and important space. Among similar-sized libraries, Dorothy Alling Memorial Library ranks #1 in program attendance, #2 in circulation of materials, but #8 in building size. All right, so how did we get here? As Kevin mentioned, it's been a long process, and it's also been one that has been driven by community involvement and community voices. So what we ended up doing first, in 2022, we had a scoping committee project that explored community spaces, how the public use the spaces in town, and what they would like to have. We did open-ended surveys, and we really gathered a lot of information from that. Then, after deciding, in 2023, with the information that we got, what we decided to do was to have the library to expand the library at its current spot. There is a couple reasons for that. One reason is that it was the more fiscally responsible options to add on to the library. But another really important part of that decision, and this is one that the trustees believed in unanimously, is that the library belongs here in the center of town. The interaction between the school and the community recreation area and the library is something that is priceless. And it's unique to our town, and it's something that's special to our town. And it ends up contributing to the lifelong learning that we want to have in our town of Williston. Once we decided that, then we worked with our architect and had a committee that was the schematic design committee. And that was a number of meetings, and with some different people, trustees, library people, some community members, and we very carefully made some decisions about how this expansion was going to go. One of the first decisions that we made was the direction that we were going to add the expansion to. And the idea that we were going to expand kind of keep the flow going, I guess, towards the school was something that was very strategic and also was able to keep the town green, to have less going into the town green. The town green would stay as big as it possibly could. And we think that that was the right decision for the town and the right decision for the library. In 2025, the design was finalized and presented to the select board. And with the idea that there was going to be a capital campaign to help reduce the cost of the project if the bond was approved. And so now what we have is in 2026, the town meeting and the vote. Thank you.
So I'll jump back in here, as probably isn't the easiest thing to see on the screen with the schematic, but we have a website as well if you want to look at it after the meeting, and I think we have some boards and models out in the lobby to get a closer look at the layout here. But I'll look at the site plan. It was mentioned before, but the outline in red you see, that's our current library. The outline in blue is the proposed expansion. As Carla mentioned, the design committee spent considerable amount of time discussing parking first, where to add parking, be really thoughtful about preserving our village green and what that looks like moving forward. That is careful attention to location, scale, and materials used for this project. The decision was made to limit the visual impact on this site plan. So this is proposed as a two-story addition. It reduces the footprint and it limits the amount of the green consumed by the addition. The new building floor elevation, it's staggered to respond to the slope grade and keeps the overall building height down. That further reduces the impact on the green. The materials for this project would be predominantly a mix of white clapboards and brick to be consistent with the existing library building and the adjacent school brick building that we're in this evening. So looking at the green project component of this overall, we worked with a landscape architect as part of this, had discussions with our town band. This scope includes the new rerouted pathways on here, new performance platform with easier access for the town band and other groups that would like to use it. A parking lot next to the new entrance, added parking near the old schoolhouse. You'll see that in the southwest corner. 22 parking spaces near the new entrance and 7 near the old schoolhouse. As Kevin mentioned, elimination of parking along Library Lane and the designated left turn lane on the exit. There's a vegetation refresh as part of this as well. Some trees will need to be removed, but new trees will be planted. There'd be 42 trees total on the green. There's 39 currently, an overall net gain of 3. And you also see, it's hard from where you're sitting, but if you look at this site plan, it looks at pause points with plantings and areas to engage with the space, added stone seating and retaining walls along Library Lane, the southwest corner near Williston Road, at the current library entrance. And as the committee was working on this, looking at first at the library component of it, it really became apparent to look at the village green as well. And as if work proceeds on the library, thinking about our village green and how we can utilize this opportunity to reactivate this space and look at different elements that could be included. And that's how this design was brought forward by the committee to the trustees and the select board, and now to you to consider. So again, here's the interior piece, and Kevin will walk through parts of this design for you.
So again, the current library and the space that will be renovated is down at the bottom. The new space is at the top, and it's broken up into 2 floors. I'm going to talk about, first of all, the renovated space, because a lot of what is currently the entire library will be more space for children and young adults. The entire 1998 edition, which is on the left, will be space for younger children. On the right, there's space for young adults, and then the light purple or violet colored space is a maker space, a create space it's called. The Historical Society, which has had a permanent home since the 1990s edition, will remain exactly where it is in the light blue space that's there, and the courtyard will remain. That's something I'm particularly excited about, because libraries for hundreds of years have been designed with an interior courtyard, so you can read with natural light instead of having to read with artificial light. It's a good design. The new wing, which is 2 floors, the first floor is the one that has the red and the green. The red is the entrance area, and the entrance will be back towards the school. The green spaces are 2 new meeting rooms that have a wall that can be taken down to make 1 large meeting room with a kitchenette, and that'll actually be accessible before or after hours when the library is closed. There's restrooms that are there as well. And then there's an elevator that will bring people up either to the old building, which is halfway up. It's about kind of like a split level design. Or up to the 2nd floor, which is the adult stacks. Twice as much shelving for both the children's collection and the adult collection. And the 2nd floor is designed to have more of a traditional library feel. One of the things we heard a lot of was people didn't want to lose the feeling of the library being a warm and cozy place to come to. So the 2nd floor is designed specifically to have kind of nooks and crannies. It has more eaves and kind of window seating, and it has a smaller ceiling height as well to make it feel more like a nice place to sit and read. Let me see. John, if I'm leaving anything out, feel free to jump up here and jump in. But oh, yes, right. So right now we have 1 medium-sized meeting room. This will, in addition to having 2 more large meeting rooms, will also have the 3 purple rooms on the 2nd floor are small meeting rooms. And I think there's a fundamental point that's important to make as well, which is this edition doubles the size of the current library. So the original library, which is down the light blue building, was built opened in 1959, and then we had an addition in 1986 that was this wing, and another addition in 1998. About every 20 to 25 years, we've had to add on to the library. By doubling the size, this project really is focused on adding 50 to 75 years of usable space or multiple generations, and that's one of the fundamental reasons why the price tag is a lot higher than previous editions have been. So I think that's important for folks to consider.
I want to emphasize what Kevin said, is that if you've ever been in the library, you know that it is a welcoming place. It is warm, it is cozy. Some people have described it as the part of the heart of the town. And it's an example of one of these third spaces that is really important to have for our community. It's more than just the books. It's a place for people to gather. There's programs. There's outreach through the bookmobile. It is a important part and a vital part of the town, and it's what makes Williston special. Eric was talking about these are pictures that seem like Williston at the beginning. of his presentation today. Well, our library is really a big part of that for many people in Williston. And if you haven't been to the library, please come and visit.
So we have just like a couple more slides from the visuals here, then we'll get into the components for the financial aspects of this project and timeline and the capital campaign. This is a view looking headed east from the green. You see one of the new paths in there. The addition on the back side to the left, blending in with the current library with the consistent roof line and consistent materials there. And then this is going down Library Lane. You see the removal of the parking there, creating more space. The current entrance there on the left, and then the new entrance would be around the corner in the front. This would be the upstairs space, the adult section above the entry. And this would be in the entry area of the addition. And the circulation desk inside that entry area. And again, these are all on the project website as well to take some more time looking at them. We also have some boards in the lobby as well. And we wrap up tonight too. We'll be around to answer any other questions. We'll get to the questions here in just a couple minutes, but if you'd rather ask a question of us or library trustees or select where we're around. So timeline, we're here at the March 2026 bond vote to consider. If that is supported by the voters, the final design and project bid work would happen over the next year from April of this year to spring of next year. Phase 1 of this project would be the addition with the work on the green. That would look to begin in spring of 27. Look to complete that phase 1 in May of 28. We then start phase 2, which would be the renovation of the current space in summer of 28. Look to complete that in the winter of 29. So important here process-wise with this, the library would stay open throughout. Things would move into the addition while the renovation was taking place, so we wouldn't lose service during this couple-year time for this project. So looking at the overall cost breakdown for this project, as we shared, it's just under a $14.5 million project. Worked with a professional estimator as we went through this to come up with these numbers. About $7.7 million is the construction of the addition. 2.8 to renovate the existing building, including energy efficiency upgrades, about 1.7 million for site work, traffic safety, and stormwater mitigation, about $1 million for the village green improvements, including the accessible walkways and the outdoor performance space. And then funds, about 1.2 million, are built in this budget for contingency to prevent budget overruns, standard in putting a project of this size and scope together. So overall project funding, the bond question is asking for bonds approval for up to $13.9 million in debt through these public bonds, Article 6. Debt is brought down with the fundraising when we go to sell the bonds. Carla will share about the capital campaign with over $650,000 in pledges to date, and $550,000 to round out this project budget were existing town funds that the select board designated earlier this year. That was what was remaining from the ARPA funds the town received a few years ago, and some fund balance as well designated towards this project. So looking at the financing component with the bonds, if approved, we are anticipating selling bonds in 2 series. First would be prior to the addition in summer of 27, and then prior to the renovation in summer of 28. When public bonds are sold, the interest or the coupon rates determined at the time of sale. We're looking at a 20 to 25-year bonds likely. And again, fundraising would decrease the amount of bonds we need to sell when we go to sell them. We won't need to go to sell them until we get to the time when we need the funds for the actual construction coming up. And rounding out this debt stack we're looking at is an energy efficiency loans through the Vermont Municipal Bond Bank. They have a program that has a 2.1% interest rate and a 10-year term to cover the energy efficiency items for this project. We're estimating those to be around $1.5 million of the overall project budget, and that program offers a 2.1% interest rate for that component. So our best estimate as we try to project the property tax impact for this project with the debt, knowing we don't have the exact debt number, and as I shared, some of these variables are fluid in a project like this. And this estimate to property tax assumes we don't raise anything in fundraising. We've received a number of pledges so far to date for this project. The fundraising goal is at least $1.5 million for this project. This estimates the debt payment on property taxes, looking if we borrow the full $13.9 million. So it looks at our best estimate's about $40 per $100,000 of assessed property value, property tax impact. Again, about $120 per year for the median assessed home at $300,000, or if you look at it monthly, about $10 per month. This per year cost will decrease as the bonds and notes are paid off over time, as the interest goes down and more goes towards the principal. I'll turn it back to Carla before we wrap up to share more about the library capital campaign.
So if you've seen the thermometer, we decided to do a book thermometer instead of a traditional thermometer for the fundraising for our capital campaign. And before I continue, if there are members from the capital campaign that are here, would you like to stand up so that you can be recognized for your work? And people know who you are in case they want to talk to you about it. Thank you. So we are a smallish group, but we're working really hard to try to raise some private funds to lower the bond that you're going to be ultimately, if this passes, that you would be, that the town people would be responsible for. It actually speaks to the power of the library and the importance that people have for the library, that we've had a number of people that have contributed and some nice amounts, and to have our $650,000 pledge amount so far. We're hoping to get a $1.5 million, and that's a pretty hefty amount, but regardless of how the vote goes tomorrow, we're going to keep working all the way through the year to be able to reduce the amount that ultimately, hopefully, the bond ends up becoming. What we've been doing is kind of a quiet phase where we've been talking to people and connecting with people. Now we're going to probably get to be a little bit more public phase, and we're welcoming anyone who would like to contribute. And also we'll have an opportunity for people to give, I don't want to say bricks, but like smaller amounts that could be recognized as part of this campaign. So this is your library. This is our library. This is the town's library. And so if you'd like to contribute and be a part of that, step up and let us know. But some people have already, including all the people on the capital campaign committee and the staff at the library. So people are invested in this. We believe in the library, and we hope you do too.
So let's close with this slide, so that was neat. There is a picture, that's our library in the 1960s, the original brick building that houses the Historical Society, and rendering of what the entrance would look like in this proposed design. So that's a lot. We went over a lot of things right there. We'll open it up for questions about anything, the budget, the other articles, the library bond. There is a microphone there if you'd like to use that, or if you'd like to project from your seat. We're here to answer any questions that you have. Yep.
What percentage of right now are you expecting to stay in the community versus out of community resources?
In specifically to the library project? Or the
To the
budget?
library project.
So make sure I follow your question. So in community versus outside, like people who are using it from outside Williston versus inside Williston?
I'm talking about for the building and construction resources. How much are you able to utilize local business and local services versus using out-of-state or national level contracts?
I follow you. Thank you. Yeah, so our architect, our design firm, Blackbird Design, is local in Williston. I'm sure the architect, John, who's here this evening, is a Williston resident. We would be putting a project out like this to competitive bid overall. We certainly would hope we would have some good qualified local construction firms that would be interested in this project.
So Carla, I have a question for you. So, I mean, there's some slides prior that Williston Library is the #1 with participation, or people who do it, is that what it was? Well, they had percentages.
Can I ask you all to come
attendance, this seems really loud to me. What is South Burlington? How does that rate? They have a new library, and it seems like Williston wants the same thing they have.
So South Burlington wasn't one of the 10 peer libraries that we used to compare. I can say the ones that we did use range from 7,800 people in the town of Shelburne to 17,000 people in Colchester. And so those were the peer libraries. That's the population range that we used to compare, and that was the programming numbers. We were number one in terms of the programs and the attendance at those programs from those 10 libraries.
Okay, so you didn't even think about where South Burlington lies.
I think it's because it has over 25,000 people, it seemed like it was a little bit, it wasn't a peer of ours, but certainly their library renovation project, as well as the one in Shelburne and other recent examples, I think are good places to go and see what a library can do. Sure.
So you're thinking of 3 different meeting rooms that would be new and fresh that we could use? Three different meeting rooms? Is that correct?
Three,
With the new build.
3 small meeting rooms and 2 large meeting rooms that can become one much extra large meeting room.
Okay. So the concern I have is now we're going a second level, and it kind of hides the school. We can't really see the school now. It seems like it's going to hide the school. And we're not going to have a gazebo anymore. There won't be a gazebo, which I think is just so cute and charming.
It's a band shell, but it's staying.
Well,
Yeah.
it looked like a gazebo.
Can you go back one slide? So I don't know if you can see it, but the octagonal, the small octagon, oh, thank you, Carla. That's the band shell, and it will either stay there or move closer to the parking, depending on what the band would like, but it will stay.
But will it look like a gazebo?
It'll look exactly like it looks now.
I love that, because I
Yeah.
love that. That's just a favorite thing.
It's not changing. It's not
Okay.
changing.
Okay, all right. Thank
The other thing about the green meeting rooms, they're going to be accessible for after hours. So there's a large, they're quite large, but then they can be divided. So you can have 2 different groups meeting. And it's also going to be available after hours for the library. So it makes it more accessible to a lot of things. One of the ideas that came out with that scoping study originally was to have more community spaces in town, which we don't really have. The library has one, what do we call our room? Oh, yeah, one community room, and it's booked every night. And so, and if any of you have been trying to find a space for like Boy Scouts or HOA or, you know, an organization to meet, it's nearly impossible to find space. So now this is going to be potentially 2 rooms that people can use after hours that will be available in the library.
So the original Dorothy Allen Memorial Library, we'll still be able to, it's there. It's going to be there. We'll still be able to
Yes,
work out. Okay.
yes. So what they're going to do is we're going to build on the extension first, and then move things in there, and then renovate the existing library.
Okay. All right, thank you.
Jen, can you talk about she addressed the sightline question and, you know, the question about the roof and the sightline and how the building is being built down?
Yeah, I will speak until I start coughing, and then I will put the
sorry,
mask
Tom.
back on. Yeah, because the lower level of the addition is half a level down from where the current floor plan or floor plate, and the second one is up higher, and we're trying to keep the roof down fairly low on that so that it really does not extend very much higher than the existing building. And so therefore, we're not going to, there's also some very tall trees behind there that currently block the school from the road. So I think you're really not going to see any more or less of the school building. I would agree as an architect that not seeing the school building is any more than we do is probably a negative, but we're not going to change that.
Other questions from folks? Oh, sir?
How much is this going to add to the budget every year?
Yep. So the debt service, we think it would be, I have a debt schedule here. Yep, that's about there for the first year, for FY '28. Yep, we've got the debt schedule, that's right around the number we'd be looking for FY '28. This is where we projected the potential tax addition there.
And if you compare it to Middlebury's expansion of 26,000 feet versus our 13,000, seems like our prices per square foot is $1,115, and Middlebury's getting it done for $645. Talk to that.
Yep, so this is the estimate we currently have for the project as scoped. We certainly need to put it out to bid and see where those numbers land. I know the Middlebury project, I believe, has gone out to bid and they've awarded that contract. So we're trying to project with the estimator and the architects, and we'd refine that over the next year. Yep, we're using the best information we have today for a project that hasn't been awarded yet. Other questions from folks? Brian?
My name is Brian Forrest. I'm a Williston resident, and I'm probably going to be talking about something that really don't want to hear. There are a couple of elephants in this room. One of them is parking. We already have a parking problem down at the school the way it is now. We're adding more parking and more people to this problem. I think that is one big issue that we're just exacerbating. I think the second one is the loss of our green. The green is small to begin with as it is now, and the people of this town have voted money to expand our open space, and this seems to be going in the wrong direction. I think the school needs an addition. I mean, the library needs more space, but I think this is the wrong place. I think the library really deserves to be closer to the heart of Williston, which is actually Taft Corners. That's the main part of town, and I think the southeast corner of Taft's Corner, where the Burlington Bagel shop is right now, is probably the site that we should be looking at for a future library, and looking not just down the road 30 years or 40 years, but hundreds of years. It has land up, we own some land down there already, and there's enough land to properly put a library that would take care of our needs in the future. I think the school, the library right now, could be repurposed for, we talked about the need for young involvement in the library and need more space. I think that library could be dedicated to the school and become the permanent school library with plenty of room for the needs of the children. There could also be used for municipal space that would be needed in the future, but my dream of that would be to tear the whole thing down and give us a proper town green. We don't have one now, and we're losing more of it. I think there's nowhere to expand in the future. We're putting our money into a project which has limited time and limited value, and we're putting good money after bad right now. So I'd ask you to take a look at this project. It's not a fait accompli. It needs some has some serious problems, and I think it's a very parochial solution to a larger problem that we have in town here. Thank you.
Thanks, Brandon. I just want to clarify a couple points you made. First, in Taft Corners, the town does own some land, but it's about a half acre to an acre in Maple Tree Place. In addition, as we look back at this for the library itself, the original building was a gift of the Alling family to the town, and part of the covenants with that gift were for it to remain a public library, or it would revert back to the Alling family, at least the original part of the library. And as the community looked at that scoping study, the three key elements that were explored was to expand the current library and look to build a community center and the growth center, which was the recommended pathway forward by the committee and the direction that the select board landed on, to build a new library and a new community center, or to create a new combined facility for both. That's where the direction was made from that community feedback a couple of years ago. All good points and questions. It's a good question. I can't speak to that specifically. Back. Read.
Thanks, Eric. I just wanted to share that while I share some of Brian's concerns, I mostly had questions. One was how the research took into account people who aren't around today to express what their needs are going to be. For instance, the fact that most of our development is going to be in the growth center. So I'm just curious how that was assessed during the interview and research phase. And then secondly, whether there were any conversations with the school about whether the parking could be reduced by sharing parking during times when the school doesn't need it. Thank you.
Yeah, for the survey piece.
We did meet with the school administrators to talk about the parking situation. And so given the expansion, what ends up happening by having that parking lot at the end, it's actually a safer situation because you're going to have, you're not having people backing into, like right now you back into a space and then you have to back out. And so if you've ever been to there when the buses are coming through, it can be not necessarily the safest place. So by having a separate parking lot there, it's actually going to be a safer situation for any people driving, but also for the kids that go often from the school to the library. So we did meet with someone, and they seemed to agree with the plan.
And it's, the future space is part of your question. It's a good one. I brought it with me, but this is the scoping study itself from a couple of years ago. I know the sentiment from the community when surveyed was strong to keep it in the village. I don't know if we asked that question explicitly about thinking in the future, but going by what the community's consensus and feedback was at the time, that was a very strong feedback element as the scoping committee was going through the options. But we can look in this and see where the data landed on that too.
There's a copy at the library too.
Yep. Carl.
This isn't remarks, Carl Fowler from Middle Run. This isn't remarks about the value or not of any of these projects. I just tried to do a calculation of what the impact would be per $100,000 evaluation if the school budget proposal, town budget proposal, and the library budget proposal were all approved. And if I've taken the figures right, and I think I have, it's $138 for the school district per 100,000, $24 for the town per 100,000, based on the slide you showed us a bit earlier, and $40 for the library, which is a total of $212 per 100,000. And the average value of a home in this community is supposed to be somewhere in the $300,000 range. So that would mean it would be roughly a $640, $650 increase for that average home. And with that, I reside no further, but I think that's a way we can look at how we feel about affordability is by a figure which is in common, namely per 100,000. Thank you.
Thanks, Carl. I would just offer the library debt component. That won't hit until FY28. So given, there'll be other budgets for next year, I anticipate they'll go up for the school and the town next year too.
Tonight will eventually happen. And it's conceivable that inflation will get even worse and we will pay a higher bond rate. So I think the fair comparison is, what is it we're voting as if this is going to happen now? And again, I have not taken a stand on this. I'm just giving you the figures based on extrapolation.
Thank you.
And that's for 25 years, right? What bonds do we have out now? How many bonds do we have out right now that we're still paying on?
Yeah, so the town has just paid off its public safety facilities bonds. That will be paid off in the next year from the police station and fire station. The Public Works Garage is a larger remaining bonds. It's another 5 or 6, about 8 years left. I have to check the debt schedule, but as part of the budget, we illustrate our debt schedule. That's all outstanding debt and the maturity dates for those bonds and notes. Sure.
Please correct me if I'm wrong, but I do remember when we were looking at the different possibilities, the keep the library as it is, where it is, and have an extension, do a combined space elsewhere, do a library elsewhere, or expand where the library is. Expanding where the library is was the most cost-effective plan. So any of those other plans were significantly more expensive just for the library component. And I just wanted to put that out there because the issues have been raised simultaneously with the cost of this being so high. Well, the cost of all of the other options were millions of dollars more. Is that correct? And with the cost, Eric just mentioned that it would, I think you just said start fiscal '28, but that's what this projection is projecting for. We are projecting for the future. When you mentioned that Middlebury had already done their bonding and they already have a contract, that's for current prices. We're trying to project out based on what we believe the cost will be when the time comes to pay for it. Beyond that, it is our understanding that the cost will continue to go up, which is part of the reason why we're trying to put this FUR bond now to have it be as cost-effective as possible.
Thank you.
And if I'm wrong about any of that, please feel
No,
free to correct me, but
Mr.
that is
Chair.
my recollection. Thank you.
Hi, my name is Chris Clark, and I just want to say, despite what everyone says, I love that it's in the village. I mean, we only moved here about 3.5 years ago, and most of my time, and I'm coming into the village for something. I love that being the center of the actual community as opposed to the shopping. I love the design. I'm, of course, worried about the money like everyone else, but I think that the sidewalk around the green is going to make the green much more usable. I think more people are going to be walking around the green and things with the sidewalk there in that nice loop. And I just wanted to say that I think you did a great job with the planning.
So I think I'll ask any last question. I want to get to the school before the hour gets too late here. It's 8:30. Oh, no. Oh, yep, right there in the middle.
I'll make it really quick. We've been talking about the construction, Greg Minnick, live in Williston. Talking about the construction, the cost of the bond and design. But then we have the operation of the library once the expansion is completed. The budget for next year has just over $1 million allocated for library operations, maintenance, overhead. Has any estimates been made about how the operating budget for the library will increase once the expansion is completed?
Yep. Yeah, I'll turn to that.
And what the implications might be for taxes?
Yep.
Yeah, that's a great question. Because the square footage is doubling, needing more staff, which is the most expensive cost. Those would be 1 full-time, 2 part-time positions. The full-time would have benefits, the part-time would not have benefits. The total cost there is around, I believe it's $134,000 that we estimated when we looked at it. And then in terms of other operations, the janitorial services would go up. That would, currently we spend, I think, about $13,000 on that. That would go up, I would guess, probably not doubling because of economies of scale, but I would estimate it to go up probably about $8,000. And then I would estimate maintenance, which we currently spend $16,000 a year, to go down slightly, since it will be a new and renovated facility. So overall, there will be increases. I would guess it's in the ballpark of about $150,000. Thanks for your question.
My name is Roberta Tracy. I live here in town. And before I start, I would like to thank each of you for your service to our community. You work tirelessly and selflessly on our behalf. And I speak only for myself, but I appreciate what you do tremendously. I want you to bear with me for a minute because I do have some statistics I want to share with you. Unemployment statistics as of January 2026, United States unemployment is up 7.4 million people from earlier this year. Part-time employment is up by 410,000 since January of 2025. Most are part-time because their hours have been cut. Although construction jobs were added in 2025, 6.9% of construction workers remained unemployed. Vermont's unemployment rate was up 0.1% as of December of 2025. Cost of education. Vermont cost of education per pupil is the second highest in the United States. Cost of housing. In Williston, the average price of an apartment is between $1,859 and $2,160 per month. The national average is $1,626, according to apartments.com. Homelessness is increasing among vulnerable populations, people with disabilities, children, and older adults. 1 in 3 homeless people lives in a vehicle. It is a permanent and growing feature of homelessness. 40% of people experiencing homelessness are employed. According to USA Facts, Vermont has the 5th highest rate of homelessness in the country. Taxes. Vermont has the 5th highest property tax rate in the country. Our personal income tax rate is ranked 8th highest in the nation. Vermont is considered the least affordable state for retirees. In 2025, Vermont lost 1,800 residents, the largest loss in the country in proportion to its population. This is the single largest reason for those leaving Vermont is affordability. It is very clear that Vermont and Williston have an affordability issue. Given the uncertain financial future we face, not only here in Vermont, but nationwide, once again, I come to the council to ask you to please rein in our spending, and that those of you who wield authority seriously consider the difference between what is wanted and what is needed. As a retired librarian, I find it really difficult at this point in time to support the amount of money that is being requested for this library. I want a bigger library. I do not think that this is the time for it. And also, given the statistics raised by this other gentleman, I'm really finding it difficult to support the budget for the town, the library proposal, and the school budget. We cannot afford this. Thank you.
Thank you. And I'm just chatting with Kevin. As part of the staffing profile for the library expansion, we've created a full-time position in this current budget with adding some hours to a staff member to address that. It was a need whether we expand the library or not. So looking on the staffing profile would be additional part-time hours to round that out. But I will take one last call for questions before we break for the school to get set up.
Hello, my name is Dan Power, and I would just like to say a few
I am concerned about the loss of FEMA funding and how that could affect Williston's future. I am also concerned about the potential cost of policing the ICE demonstrations as they increase and get out of control, and for enforcing them, especially with S208 and S209, which is something we will have to contend with. I think we need a contingency reserve fund for emergencies like this. If after a year the money is not used, it could go into a fund for future improvements, such as library renovations. Although the 1% is not really apparent here, it still feels like we are becoming a two-tiered town. Most of the people who work here cannot afford to live here. Many people are homeless. Now is not the time to do anything but to decrease the size of the town budget. If a decrease is not possible due to employee wages, we at least need to not increase staffing or add to the tax burdens with a library bond. I'm sure at least this year you are prepared with another budget in case this one gets voted down. And I also want to sincerely say I appreciate all the work and all the effort that you have all put into this, and I thank you for your time.
Thanks, Dan. Okay, I think we will call it there. Thank you all for coming and asking really good questions. The school's going to get set up for their presentation. And if you have any further questions, we'll be around, or stop by tomorrow, send us an email, make sure your questions are answered before you cast your vote. Thank you all again.
Yeah. Take several votes for your dining room table, your... I said my own copy.
Oh, job, Kevin. Thanks, Jerry. Oh, that was fun. Well, I'm glad that people are asking. Yeah, it's good. Yeah, I'm going to go talk to the gentleman about today here.
Several times. How are you?
Oh, sure. My name is Joe Cushing. You guys see me.
Yes. Have you picked out your recipe yet? No, we were just there and I was like, oh, this is going to be fun. We need to have a bowl of this is 1950. We need to have
Oh, yes. Thank you. I'll have a joke too. I know.
It's actually ridiculous to see someone standing there pointing at the screen trying to point something up in the audience.
Thanks so much.
You did a great job. No, okay. Probably turn that off until it's needed, right? I'm not going to stand up there. I'm going to just grab it. Stay there. Just want to get too near these other mics. Greg, do you think if I walk around down here with this, I'm going to create feedback?
It depends how far forward you go. I think you'll be all right. I can probably turn that down a little bit.
Testing.
Yeah, I can turn that.
Okay.
It's almost 9 o'clock.
I'm not gonna make it to hockey. Team's down on me.
You're the one who's got a hockey match. Gotta get home.
Did you go home after Panera? Did we hit Panera last year accidentally on this night?
I did not go to Panera. I went to the tuna. Yeah.
I like that one. That spot's nice. Testing, testing. Okay, I think we're going to get started. If I could have your attention, please. So thank you so much. My name is Adam Bunting. I'm superintendent of CVSD, and it is my honor to stand in front of you as a school official, a fellow Williston town resident, a long supporter of these schools, and just to be here to tell you a little bit about our budget and what we're offering you this year. And I will also take a moment to give the mic to Megan Metzler, our board chair.
Hello, Williston. I'm Megan Metzler, chair of the board. Not a Willistonian, but I am obviously a CVSD-ian, and I've been on the board for about 5 years. and really glad to be standing in front of you tonight.
And we know you've had a long evening, so we are going to be as brief as we can and then answer your questions. I will tell you that I did move to Williston about 20 years ago because of the school system, because of Williston schools. Wanted to raise my children here and know what a fantastic system this is. So to talk at all about FY27, to set the context for this year's budget, I think we have to talk a little bit about what transpired over the past 2 years. And for those who remember and who have been paying attention, CVSD went through some pretty dramatic reductions over the past 2 years. So we saw a $9 million loss in 82. We cut 82 positions over the past 2 years, which has impacted our offerings for our students. And the reason that we found ourselves in that spot, some of it was due to declining enrollment, but a lot of it, more of it had to do with something that was called Act 127, and that was the way in which the state started counting student populations differently, and that had a huge impact on us as a district. So coming into this year's budget, we really wanted to do three things. The first thing is we wanted our folks in our community to know that despite some of these reductions, we still are putting on a really impressive program for our students. The second thing we wanted folks to know is that we remain committed to being creative in this budget and to come up with a budget that was really respectful of both our community and of course to our taxpayers as well. And we heard about some of those concerns tonight. And we also are committed to having our community know that their tax dollars are going to not just supporting programming for our students, but to really sustaining a vibrant community across all of our towns. And one of the ways in which we measure that is to look at we look at something that we call engagement data. So not only are we looking at the proficiency numbers for our students that are reflected up here. For instance, 96% of CVU's four-year graduation, 96% is CVU's four-year graduation rate. Okay, that's in comparison to our state average of 82%. We have 87%, that's the number of CVSD students who scored proficient or above on standardized literacy assessments. So that includes the SATs, and that includes things like iReady for our third graders, and we know how important that literacy rate is for third graders in terms of their future educational experience. We have a 94% attendance rate. So if you can compare that to our statewide average of 89% and our national average of 91%. We have 75% of our fourth graders who are proficient or above in literacy on our 2025 VT cap. So that's our state testing system. And beyond proficiency, we also think deeply about the connections of our students. Not just what our students know and what they're able to do, but how are they going to contribute as citizens and who are they going to be as people? And for us, that means our students have to be engaged in relationships that are meaningful to them, that are authentic, that support their learning for their entire experience in our CVSD school system. So we have 96% of our CVSD students who say they have friends at school who treat them with kindness and respect. 94% of our students say they have at least one trusted adult in our school. So you can read these other statistics. I won't keep just throwing statistics at you, but to me, these numbers are in stark contrast to some of the national and local narratives that have developed about our educational system, about our educators, and also about our students. And for us, when we confront these narratives that I actually think are false and engineered for political purpose, we have to be upfront and say, no, this is what our students are experiencing, this is what our kids are saying, and this is how our educators have remained steadfast in their commitment to our kids, despite some of these narratives, despite some of the reductions we've seen. We have a committed and caring group of adults who are wholly focused on seeing our students succeed. So if I could shout that out and print that in every newspaper, I'd do it. I guess I could. So we've had some challenges, and we've had some tailwinds as we see here. So some of the headwinds that we're facing in terms of budgeting, we have a declining tax rate discount that goes back to that student waiting legislation that came through a few years ago. If I say H850, I know I can see Jean's face, and she's going to shudder a little bit. Persistent healthcare increases. So if you look across our district, I believe we've gone up 48% in healthcare costs over the past 5 years. This year, we were relieved that it was a 7% increase. Okay, that's when we're talking about the numbers of employees we have here, and about 80% of our budget focused on salary and benefits. That 7% adds up, and we felt a sense of relief based on, I think, the 12% that we saw last year. Another challenge for us, clearly federal uncertainty and loss of grants, and then a variability just in terms of there's a nonlinear association based on sometimes what we vote for and what our tax impact is going to be, particularly when we're voting for a school budget before we know what that final tax impact is going to be. The governor has signaled this year that we're going to see a significant buy down, which could cut some of our rates almost in half. Unfortunately for us, we don't see that till happen. It doesn't happen until much later in the year. So, and there's been a lot of talk also about consolidation, which has people a little bit nervous when we think about Act 73. And we've had some great things going for us. Again, a talented and committed workforce. We have our percentage increase that we're asking for this year. We are just below level service, and we are, in comparison to what we're asking when we look at other schools around the state, other school systems, we are far below that. Megan's going to talk about that in just a moment. And of course, last year we had a property tax decrease. So what we thought we were voting on, actually by the time that everyone went to go pay their taxes, they saw a decrease. And then finally, we have awesome kids. So I'm going to turn things over now to Megan Metzler.
Sure. We do have awesome kids, and they go to class every day. One of the things that you hear a lot about in Vermont, if you've been listening to kind of the discussion about schools overall, is class sizes and very small class sizes and really small schools in Vermont, and CVSD does not fit that. It's not fit that at all. Over the past 2 years, we've continued to cut teachers and cut positions. Our class sizes have also gotten bigger because we make sure that we're really focused on overall class sizes. So you have average class sizes of kindergarten of 17 in CVSD, 17 K3, 22 4-8, as well, and 20 overall. That is significantly above the minimums that are in Act 73 and the legislation that came out, and actually significantly higher than statewide averages throughout the state. So we really are focused on making sure that we have the right number of kids in the class, but they're also not very, very small, as you might have heard if you read kind of the newspaper. CVU, the class sizes I just showed you were for our K-8s at CVU. The class sizes go up to 22-ish students overall, but they're also on the larger side, especially compared to many of the high schools throughout the state. So as Adam was saying, when we look at the overall expenses, overall our budget is $107.9 million, and that's a lot of money, and we know that's a lot of money, and it's something that I've been looking at every year and saying, wow, that's a lot of money. but I also think that it's worth every dollar. And the amount of time that we spend thinking about that is enormous. We've been focused on the budget for the past 6 months. In many ways, I've been focused on this budget for 5 years since I joined the board, since I'm constantly budgeting. But that's where we're at. So what are the cost drivers here? As Adam said before, this is a level service budget. So we're trying to provide the same level of service this year or next year as we are this year. And that's after 2 years of really difficult cuts. That if anyone has kids in the schools or has been in the schools, you can feel it. You know, I'm the parent of 2 kids, and I have a senior at CVU, and I've got an 8th grader, and you can see the differences and the impacts that those cuts have had on those kids over the past 2 years. And as a board, you know, we also pay taxes. I'm also a taxpayer, and it's really hard to look at those numbers, but we also. So you know what, we wanted to stay as level service as we can. So this is actually a level service-ish budget, because we did push back a little bit on we did push back quite a bit, and they actually cut about $1 million based on what our initial amounts were. When the board first got our initial view of this, it was about $1 million higher, and they went back and sharpened the pencil and found some ways to get it down to where we are. So a 5% increase overall is where we're at. That's a 5.8% increase in special education. Many special education costs are, you know, based on specific legal needs that we have to meet as a district. General education is up 4.5%, and operations is up 5.8%. The initial estimates that we got for the state were that overall spending would go up by 5.8%. We came in at 5. I think that number's come down a little bit over the past couple of weeks, but we're making decisions based on the information that's available to us at the time. So what are the factors? As Adam said before, when you have a school district, 80% of your costs are people, and they're people that we very much value. But that's also where all your increases are going to come from. So from last year, we're adding $3 million in salaries. That's a contractual agreement that we have with our teachers and our staff. Health insurance, we are really excited. It's only a $721,000 increase for health insurance this year. It was much higher. It was 12% the year before that. And you know, we're at a point where health insurance is 15% of our overall budget. And I think a lot of people would say, well, why don't you health insurance is actually negotiated at the state level. The school board has no ability to negotiate any health insurance contracts. It's negotiated at the state level. That's not something that we have control over from a negotiations perspective. Other benefits go up $388,000. Debt is $481,000. We do have a bond as well for the district. That reflects the increase. And then we have tuition and all others, which get us up to 107.9. So what is our cost per weighted pupil? The way that your taxes are calculated is actually based on what our cost per weighted pupil is. And that's a bit nonsensical, because we do not have 5,724 students in Champlain Valley School District. We have closer to 3,724 students, something around there. But the way that your taxes are calculated is based on weighted pupils. And the state and others know that some students cost more to educate. A student who's an English language learner requires more resources than a student who's not an English language learner. So the state goes through, and we go through a process with the state to figure out, to add weights to students. So our 3,725 students, whatever that's around the number, actually become 5,724 weighted students. And our weighted per pupil spending is $15,962, which is about a 2.7% increase year over year. That's quite significant. If we looked at the overall per pupil increase for most districts, it was forecasted to be around 6.8%. So we're actually coming in significantly lower than the forecast on a per weighted pupil basis. 15,962 is we're actually pretty close with all of our surrounding districts this year. So that's, we're actually getting much closer from a comparison perspective based on all of the ballots that I went and looked at for fun. It is fun. This is the not fun part. So we have to come up with our expected tax rates with the CLA applied. CLA is confusing. I heard Eric talk about it earlier. But a house in Williston, if you look at your appraised value based on what you're taxed on, it's probably about half of what it actually is cost, what the current fair market value is. So the CLA is designed to address or address the fact that your house is, the appraised value that you're taxed on is actually not really reflective of fair market value. You'll notice, question that we always get asked is, well, why are the taxes different for each of the towns? You'll notice that every town has the same pre-CLA tax rate. CVSD has one budget, and every town has the same pre-CLA tax rate. So it's $1.66 versus last year it was $1.62. If our COO, Gary Markers, was standing here, he would be telling you that he, as a COO, looks at this. He says, this is what he actually has control over, going from $1.62 to $1.66. It's before any of the other adjustments for CLA. But we do have to bring the CLA into play. So for Williston Home, the CLA that they have here, this says 82%. That is based on state math. Your CLA is actually 58%, and there's an adjustment, which I could talk about if you really want to be really geeky with me later, but I can do it. But your final property tax rate is $2.03. Now, this is, to be very clear, and Adam brought this up earlier, this is a forecast based on what's known as the December 1st letter. It does not reflect any buy downs from that the legislature may or may not do that has been included in Governor Scott's budget. But, and as a gentleman said earlier, for a Williston home, that is a $138 increase per $100,000 of assessed value. That's the increase that we're looking at right now. So unfortunately, education finance is such that a 5% increase in spending can lead to a 2.7% increase in per pupil spending, but then you still end up with an 8.7% increase in taxes if you live in Williston, but a 14% increase in taxes if you live in Charlotte, like I do. It's a bit nonsensical, but that's where we're at right now. And we do expect that number will be less than that, but I could have come up here and shown you a slide with a lower number, but we want to be as transparent as we can about the information that we have to date. We do also have a $13 million bond. I'll tell you that library is way cooler looking than what our the library presentation is. Very, very cool. This is $13 million, but it's being kind of dispersed across different, all of our different buildings, well, not all of our different buildings, but several of them. One of the questions that we've gotten is, well, how are you going to have HVAC system in Williston? This is not for a brand new HVAC system in Williston. HVAC was installed in Williston a couple of years ago. This is for some of the controls around HVAC. But the $13 million is really for must-do work related to building maintenance. If you know about school buildings in Vermont, Vermont is some of the oldest school stock in the nation, and we at CVSD have worked really, really hard to maintain our buildings. Our buildings are in great shape. We're standing in a beautiful one right now. In order to keep them maintained, we have to do projects like this in order to keep them maintained. So this includes, you know, roofing. That's not a full roof at CVU. I think it's just portions of the roof. Adding in some gym bathrooms, et cetera, et cetera. We will also have an article for two used buses and up to 2 vans. So, some key dates. Today is March 2nd. Annual meeting happened earlier today. Someone came to see it, and it was done quickly. So, but we're standing here today. Tomorrow is town meeting day. Please vote by 7 p.m. tomorrow. And with that, I'll hand the mic to Adam for questions.
I'm really glad Megan was here to talk about CLA. Questions, thoughts? Yep.
The super wealthy in, say, California, that they are de-digitizing classrooms. And I mean, these are tech CEOs that are sending their kids to schools explicitly not to have technology in the classroom. Is there any focus about de-digitizing CVSD?
I wouldn't say there's a focus on de-digitizing. Some of the moves that we made at the high school this year, I actually see Angela in the back of the room who had a hand in this. The cell phone bans that we've put into place, I will tell you as a former principal of CVU and now coming back, frequently, but not every day, to see what CVU looks like now in comparison to a year ago, when we still allowed cell phones. We didn't allow them in classes, but in the hallways, in the library, things like that. I'm not exaggerating when I tell you that when I walk into the library and you will see students playing chess with one another. The volume in the library is much louder because students are engaging with one another. We've had students share with us the experience of when they would walk down the hall in the past and they were allowed to have their phones out and they felt uncomfortable. Instead of interacting with another human being, they'd look in their phone so they wouldn't have to have that interaction. So that's where our focus has been. And our focus has also been in really exploring, like, what is the wave in AI going to do to education? What are our students going to face? So we're trying to look at both of those things, creating as human an experience as possible, and also making sure that we're preparing our students for what they're going to experience. But no, we haven't had deep conversations on, completely ripping out all the Chromebooks and those kinds of things. Yes. You can ask the tough questions. You know things.
No, I get it. So I understand the new school bus every year, and I appreciate it. But and it came up this year, the cost of an electric school bus and the expenses of it. Do we have to always buy an electric school bus? I mean, we're all going to electricity. I kind of understand it. I'm not sold on it because I don't think we're prepared for it, for the cost of all the electric school buses. Is there a purpose that we're getting an electric school bus?
These are not electric school buses.
Thank you.
Megan made that really easy.
Because I don't know if it was this district or if it was Essex, had some issues that they couldn't, we didn't because we couldn't get the buses running. So, I mean, there's still kinks in the system. So I appreciate that you're doing that. So thank you very much.
Yeah.
There are 2 used buses. One bus would cost around that, and there are 2 used buses to help make sure that we have the fleet that we need to get around town. But they're 2 used buses.
And I do want to say, I am proud of our district's focus on sustainability and the work that we're doing with our students to be mindful. And I will say that the electric buses that we've invested in the past, I think we had some pretty good financial deals on those as well. Not that I'm looking at Gene right now, but so. All the way in the back.
And someone had left their 6 boxes. I want to make sure they got them. Is that anyone in here?
For those who maybe didn't hear that, 6 boxes of Girl Scout cookies. No lying, right? If they're yours, come claim them. They're in the back. Yeah. Looks like I don't think anyone's claiming them right now. Yeah.
What your assessment is on teachers to get the 5.5%. Does everyone guarantee that, or is that an average? Is it assessment on each teacher? How does that work?
I'm going to let Megan look like you wanted to jump on that.
Teacher salaries are negotiated. Our teachers are all part of a union, so it's negotiated at the union level. The 5.5% is actually was considered new money or money that we are putting into the overall teacher contract this year. So teachers have a grid which is available on our website as well, so you can kind of see a teacher will land where they are, and that's depending on their years of experience as well as the number of credits that they have above and beyond a bachelor's degree. So depending on where you land on the grid is what your salary is, and if you're a teacher and you know how many years of experience they are and where they land on the grid, that's what their overall salary is. So you could look at last year's contract to this year's contract and see what the increase is. Not every single teacher will get a 5.5% increase. It depends on where they are on the grid. The earlier you are in your career, the higher the jump is as you go from one step to another and you gain more experience. The more experienced a teacher you are, that amount is less because you're already higher on the grid, and it's part of our overall negotiated contract. So the easiest way to think about it is the 5.5% is really the total amount of increase in compensation for teachers year over year based on the negotiation, but not every teacher will get a 5.5% increase. Some of them may get more than that because they are gaining more experience and they've worked really hard to get a master's degree, or they've worked really hard to get several different degrees. So that's how that works, and the contract is on our website. Does that make sense? Somewhat an average, yes.
And so that sustainability year after year, is it 5.5%? That changes every year?
We have a 3-year contract that the board has negotiated. I think this is year 2. The FY27 budget is year 2 of that 3-year contract. The following year is something less than 5.5%, which I should know off the top of my head, but I do not. And the year after that, we will be negotiating based on what the current market is bearing. So I can't tell you beyond FY28. Does that make sense?
Those people who are not teachers who would love a 5.5% increase, you realize that's a lot. That's a lot for people to absorb. You hear that every year, right? And so
I'm not a teacher. I did not get a 5.8% increase. Yeah. And many of our teachers did not either, to be clear. Like many of our teachers did not get a 5.5% increase.
That's negotiated with the union. But so if the budget gets voted down,
yep.
What is your thoughts on where it goes, where you go next? What's the plan B?
We've had a budget that has not passed, and we as a board went back, thought about what the impact was, and we came to the community with another budget within a week or two. And so this is where we want to go. But it would not be to decrease the contractual teacher salaries because that's a contract we have in place. I don't know if you have a different perspective.
Yeah, I mean, I think, and I'm sure you understand this, but the way that with the collective bargaining agreement, the way that it works is that, some people say, well, why don't you just reduce the teachers who are most expensive? That, of course, is not the way it works. It's the folks who are most recently hired who are those who are typically reduced because they don't have that kind of longevity of experience. We certainly have thought about what would happen next, and if the budget were to go down. Any significant savings comes from the reductions of positions, clearly in an 80%, when 80% of our budget is with salary and benefits. What I think we've seen over the last couple of years, and what our board was committed to this year is like, wow, we are really seeing an impact on our student programming. We heard a lot from our community. I'll just give you an example as like the CVU principal, our music program. At this point, we have, I think it's like a half a chorus teacher for the largest high school in the state. So we've seen a lot of reductions already in things like our elective programming, things like world languages. So we'd be looking at, ways in which we'd be looking at those class sizes most honestly and saying, okay, what is our community being will they be willing to tolerate in terms of a class size? So we'd be looking at reductions there most likely, and the numbers of reductions, we would do our best to say, okay, what will our community support? We really hope it doesn't come to that. I think we have time for like 1 or 2 more questions. Heading on, getting close to 9:30. Yes.
So one thing that troubles me all the time is how much expensive there's state has their mythical formulas that do nothing but confuse everybody. And at the same time.
Just so people can hear that, state has mythical formulas that confuse everybody. I'm going to shout that out and repeat that.
So if you really want to have a feel for it, the state spends like $2.8 billion on students. And depending on whose number you look at, there's 73,000 kindergarten through 12th grade students. Of that money that they get that 2.8 from is there's around 600 million that comes in from homestead property taxes. Now that would be, if you didn't have the rebate, that would be close to $1 billion. But there's around $350 million that goes back to people to reduce their property taxes. I don't get that. The homestead taxes raise about $1.1 billion. And then the rest comes from things like the lottery and the state funds. Okay, there, I made these guys feel better, like we're not going after the property tax holders. But
I was waiting for the pipe.
so, I went to school a long time ago, and we counted head count by counting a head. You guys are counting, your students are about a 1.8 ratio. So we're like Lake Wobegon, we're all in teachers below average. For those of you who don't remember that. So all our kids are below average. You tell me there's 3,662 kids in the town, in our system. The state will tell me 4,000. Somebody else will tell me something else. You have $107 million budget. So how much are you spending per student? And don't use Mount William math. Since I'm not going to put you on the spot, it's $29,453 per student per spending. Now that's how the rest of us do our math. We balance our checkbook at the end of the month. What's even more disgusting, if you want to look at that, is if you take the 73,000 divided the 2.8 billion by it, the state spends $38,000 per student. That means almost $10,000 from this school system and everything is going to Montpelier and going to somebody else. That's a direct violation of Section 7, Chapter 1, where you don't benefit another person, one group over another in the state of Vermont, the Constitution. But we have problems with reading in this state, and obviously some of our Supreme Court members and other people can't read. So, we're spending $38,000. You guys do a great job, although I'm not going to let you off the handle completely. I've been here for a while. So, you sold me this used car of the school district back in 2017. It was promised. The costs would go down, things would be better, and life would be good. The budget has never gone down. We had no gain from consolidation. So, I guess what I'm saying is, I'll probably vote for the school budget. Am I going to do it with a stick in my throat? Yes. But, the average, there's states that they don't have, I think the rate per student in New Hampshire is around 20,000 per student. What are they doing that we're not doing? There are other states, Virginia, it's 15,000. And they don't have blithering idiots, well, Washington, D.C. they do. For the general part, these people are able to be educated. Now, I took this pretty seriously, and I take my kids seriously. My children. I took them out of the school system. I did not like the things I saw. I did not like the fact that they got rid of homework. I did not like the fact that everybody gets an A. You go and plot the distribution of your grades across your population, everybody's above average, which is a little bit twisted. I came from an old school that, you know, you could still get beaten in. I graduated from a nice prep school in New Hampshire. My average being second in class was 87. It's a B plus. Nobody's that good to get a 4.0 average. So I guess I'm saying is, I think it's time that you look someplace else and said, how are they able to educate their kids for a lot less than we do? Some people say it's staffing. Yes, we do have very high parent educator and teacher ratios. Some people say it's administration. Seems like that might be something. Somehow places like Rice and other schools are able to do this for considerably less. Now, I know you have the state helping you, and that's probably costing us at least $10,000 right there. Well, it is. We're raising $29,000 for our kids. Yet the state, it doesn't matter what they do, the state's going to come and screw you right to the wall and say, what do we want out of that acorn? And they're going to squeeze you until they get the money they want. $10,000 for every one of our students, all 3,666, 66.2. $10,000 for every student is going out to somebody else. I'm paying, you're paying, everybody's paying for somebody else's student. That's it. We're going to go home.
Whew, I'm not sure how to respond to all of that. I don't think I will. But I think what I would say is you're certainly not alone in the conversation that you want to be having. And if you are paying attention, and I'm sure you are, to our legislature right now and to all the things going on in Montpelier, a lot of folks are focused on a lot of the numbers that you're talking about. You know, I mean, I, for one, have been around for a while as well. And, you know, I've had the honor of spending most of my career, actually started as a long-term Spanish substitute teacher here. Lane Pinkney hired me, worked in the summer program, and then worked for a couple of decades at CVU before coming to central office. Is everything I saw over those years perfect? Absolutely not. But what I can tell you are the number of students who I am in contact with who graduated 10 years ago, 15 years ago, 20 years ago, and to see the ways in which our district honors the identity of students and says, you know what, this is what Val Gardner used to say all the time, there are a lot of different ways to go through the world, and our job as educators is to help students to find their way that they're moving through the world. We are not bumping out, you know, it's not a cookie cutter operation we're running here. We are truly trying to tap into what I would describe as the genius of each kid, and I don't think it's too much to say that when you watch the way these kids go through the world. I'm incredibly proud of what we offer as a district. And I know you're not challenging that, but I do want to point out what I get to see every day, and it's the honor of being in those halls and seeing the way those students interact with their education and to see the way that educators take care of them. Can we do it with greater efficiency? I think as a state we have to figure that out. So anyway, thank you. We'll hang around for a couple of minutes. Appreciate your attention tonight, and you've been here a long time.